What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel for the very last episode of the SX250 retro build. Today we're going to be wrapping this thing up, getting it all tightened down, getting all the parts put on it, and getting it ready to go out to the track. This is the fourth and final episode of this build. First episode, we put the front end together, the headset, the stem, the handlebars, and the forks. Second episode, we installed the tubes and the tires on the wheels, and then we put the wheels on the bike. Episode number 3, we installed the 3-piece crank, the gear, and the chain. And in this fourth and final episode, we're going to be installing a fresh new set of Speedline brake post and brake lever, as well as a Speedline linear cable. I always run linear cables because they're a lot stiffer and they don't flop around like the traditional cable and just tear up your frame, and they're also a lot smoother and a lot easier to pull. We have a pair of the Amy lock-on style grips, the signature Jeremy Rommel Supercross pivotal seat, Supercross pivotal seat post, and just a traditional seat clamp. First things first, we're going to slip the brake lever on the right side of our handlebars. Don't worry about tightening it down too tight, just snug it on, make sure it doesn't fall off, because we still have to put the grips on, and then once we get the cable and everything, then we can adjust the height where we want it. When I'm putting on lock-on grips, I like to loosen this set screw as loose as it'll go, or completely take out the bolt, because sometimes these things do fight you when you put them on because they're so tight. Once I have the grips all the way on and they're fully tightened and set into place, I like to get my brake lever and loosen it back up and adjust it and slide it all the way close to my grips. I hold my handle grips all the way on the outside, so with it being right there, it's the perfect angle I can put my finger on it. Once you have the lever and the grips put on in the front, now it's time to move to the back of the bike and install the arms. Some frames come with 3 little holes in the back right here to adjust your springs, and what those 3 little holes are for is to give you a little more adjustment just in case your springs are a little loose or they're a little tight. I don't think I've ever used any other hole besides the middle hole, because that's always worked for me, and it puts it right in that sweet spot where your brakes aren't too tight and they're not too loose. The Speedline brakes come with a little more moving parts than your normal brakes. So what I did is I laid them out so that way you can have kind of an image of how it's supposed to go and what all you need for these brakes to go smoothly. So you have your bolts and your washers, your springs, your posts, and the noodle that the cable runs through. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit of grease on the post holders, I guess you would call them. I'm not sure the exact name for them, but I'm gonna put a little bit of grease on them just in case if they ever do want to bind up, this grease will come to the rescue. Next, I'm gonna put both springs in the middle hole. Once both of the springs are in place, now we can go ahead and put the arms on. Once the arms are in place, now you can just go ahead and put the screws on and tighten them down. The brake pads come with these little washers on them. They come with a thin one and a thick one. And on these ones, the thicker ones are closest to the brake pad. And what that does, it pushes the arms further away from the wheel. And I'm not a huge fan of having my brakes stick way out like this. It's almost like having huge ears that stick way out, but in this case you can help it. So once I have those washers swapped out, now I can adjust my brake pads exactly where I want them. And how I adjust my pads, I loosen up the brake pad, not completely loose, but enough to where I can wiggle it around. I get it to where I want it on the rim, so where it's touching the rim nice and flat and it's lined up with the rim. Once it's exactly where I want it, then I can just kind of hold it with my fingers, putting pressure on the arm, and just tighten it down. Now we're ready for the brake cable. I don't have any of those fancy little plastic clips to hold the brake cable in place, so I'm gonna use a trusty zip tie. I'm just gonna loop it through and leave it nice and loose, just so I can use it as a guide, so it's not falling down and I'm losing my place and get all aggravated and pissed off. First thing you're gonna wanna do, pull out the actual cable from the outer protective shield. Because what you don't want to do is put this in place, forget about the cable, and cut it. I've done it and I had to buy a whole new brake cable, and I just was not happy. So learn from my mistakes. Take the inner cable out. Take the outer shield of the cable. I don't know exactly what this is called, but we're just gonna call it an outer shield protector. I don't know. Take your protector, put it in the brake lever, put it through your little guide, and run it towards the back of your bike. Now you can put this noodle in your brake arm and kind of use as a guide to where you want to cut your brake cable protector. Once you determined and cut that outer cable, now you're ready to feed the actual cable into the outer cable. Get the end of the cable and feed it into the non-cut side of the cable protector. Might give you a little bit of trouble, but gently push it through and make sure it's sliding nice and freely. If it's not sliding really good, what I usually do is I put a little bit of chain lube on the cable itself and just work it in, and that usually does the trick. Cable is cut and ready. Now you just got to install it. Bam! This is it. This is the SX250 retro build complete. Thank you to everyone who has stuck it out and hung out with me for all 4 episodes of putting this bad boy together. Hopefully you guys didn't get too annoyed, because I know my voice can get pretty annoying sometimes. At least that's what my wife says. Anyways, last week I know I said that I was going to be taking it out for a test ride once we had it all built, but it is already Tuesday, 7 o'clock. We got some rain rolling in, so the test ride is going to have to wait for another video. To be continued. The bike is built. All I need to do is load it up in the car, take it to the track, and do a backflip. Nope, just kidding. I'm not doing a backflip. I've never done a backflip. I haven't even done a backflip into a foam pit because I'm way too scared. I've always had this envision in my head that I'm gonna rotate too soon and I'm just gonna smash the back of my head into the lip of the jump. And it's just not worth it for me. I'm a racer. Anyways, thank you guys for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.